And welcome to Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres, episode 237. Sorry, still getting caught out by the technicals here. Happens every single week, practically. Sort that out. So today then, we're talking about the notion of a picture within a picture, or a frame within a frame, or a photo within a photo. Basically that idea of sort of slightly extra layers and depths to an image. You've all seen examples. I'm going to give you plenty today. So this is Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres. If you're looking to improve your understanding of photography with Kim Ayres, then you're definitely in the right place. So let's make a start. Yes, perhaps one day these days I really ought to kind of rehearse my introductions. Maybe it will work a little bit better. So yes, if you happen to be watching live here on YouTube, then leave a comment down below. Let me know you're here. Let me know where you're from. Let me know what the weather's doing. Let's get the chat going. And then I'll tell you all about the topic of the day. I'll also be setting a challenge on it as well, so stick around for that. And I'll be telling you about what's coming up next week too, so plenty to get on with. But I see we have comments in already, so let's see who we've got. Yeah, Nadia says, hi everyone, from Fife. Robert joins us from a sunny and warm Texas. Susan says, hi everyone, from a sunny but breezy Kakubri. And I will say, yes, here in Castle Douglas, which is just 9 miles along the road, the sun has now come out again, but it is cool. It's not really much above 9 or 10 degrees Celsius. And when the sun isn't out, if it's behind the cloud or you're in the shade, it does feel decidedly biting with that wind. Fiji says, good evening everyone in Chennai in India. April says, greetings all from a cloudy, but the sun is trying to come out on Long Island, New York. Fiji says it's very, very hot and sultry weather out here. So very, very hot for Fiji. Must be very, 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 very hot for the rest of us. John says hello from Ohio. Fiji says now 31 degrees C, feels like 41, and it's 7:30 in the evening. It must make sleeping particularly difficult, I would have thought, under those kind of circumstances. Right, so we have people in. Quick update on the Smug Points situation. Meg's joined us as well. Says good afternoon, everyone. And Janet says hi from Mississauga, Toronto. The Mississauga to Toronto train. I'll see how the train Wi-Fi holds up for a live stream. On the train watching. Gosh, so moving. All moving then. Excellent. Now, what was I going to say? Yes, let's go on to a quick Smug Points update. Basically, top contributors now, or for April, VG and April are both at 35 Smug Points, where everyone else is on 5, 10 or 15, depending on whether you submitted anything to last week's annual 5-year fest celebration that we did. So that's where we are with Smug Points, but there's still the rest of the month to go, so plenty of time to catch up, overtake and adjust your position with that. So what we're talking about today then is the notion of a picture within a picture. Sometimes you'll get a frame within a frame as a topic for one of these online challenges. I've seen it quite often in Photo Crowd, also in Guru Shots. I think Viewbug will do the same kind of thing. And very occasionally it's got a photo within a photo. Now, most of these tend to be kind of the same thing. Sometimes there are subtle differences within it, and that's really what we're going to explore. So what I've decided to do for this one is I've got together a whole bunch of photos which give explanations of different ideas. Now, with all of these, because I'm coming at this with this notion of how to tackle a challenge or a competition, then you have to bear in mind and understand that part of it depends on the judging system. With any kind of challenge, generally speaking, if you have a recognised person or small group of people who are doing the judging, then subtlety, excellence kind of tends to move you up the priority list. Whereas if you're doing crowd voting, where not necessarily everybody, in fact, potentially the vast majority of the people who are doing the voting, then you tend to need to go slightly louder, slightly brighter, slightly less subtle. If people are spending hardly any time looking at the picture, then they're not going to notice subtleties. So I will talk you through that. But as we go, feel free, throw in questions, throw in comments, all the usual stuff. Right, okay, and also for that matter, if you remember to like the video, go and click like on that. YouTube always quite enjoy. Well, I like YouTube will increase the algorithm, do something with the algorithms. Who knows? Perhaps it might even show this live video to somebody who happens to be just randomly passing and clicking on. You never know. We might find a new guest. So where are we at? So yes, this idea then, a picture within a picture or a frame within a frame. And what I'll do first of all, let's just show you a literal kind of picture within a picture. So I'll tell you, I didn't quite organise my desktop space quite how I wanted to. So if you will bear with me, I just want to do that, and then suddenly I can access my pictures without blocking off other bits. I really need to have 3 frames, so 3 pictures, pictures and frames. 3 screens is what I need. I only have the 2 screens, and it's never quite enough here. I might, of course, get total screen entry, because Robert in Texas, I think, is it 8? I think Robert's got this sort of mega thing set up with about 8 different screens. It might be too much, but then again, I kind of feel that it's like the more you get, the less you can go back. If I had to go back to 1 screen, it would drive me insane. I'm sure if I got used to 8, going back to 6 would be difficult. Anyway, I have the 2. Let's come back to what I'm trying to talk about. So, clicking wrong buttons over there. Back into here, let's flip that over. And here then is, what I'm really talking about here is the absolutely obvious. Picture within a picture, right? So selfie of me and my daughter Meg, and lots of my photos behind them. And this was a little last year's Spring Fling exhibition. All my pictures behind. Now, if you're doing picture within a picture, this is what you call a really obvious approach. And to be honest, if you're going for a judge approach in a competition, yeah, it's just a bit too easy, right? And it isn't really what I'm looking for. Certainly, if we're talking about the fact that I'm going to set a challenge for this for 2 weeks' time. If you do something like this, you're not necessarily likely to be in the upper echelons, unless it's exceptional. With all these ideas, everything I say, it's like the idea I talk about, always have a straight horizon, unless there's a reason not to. And that's fine. You can have a tilted horizon if you've made a conscious decision to do the tilted horizon. The worst bit is if you've only got a slightly tilted horizon, you haven't done it deliberately, and it just looks out. It's the same thing with absolutely everything I'm going to talk about. Picture within picture, I'm going to say this works, this doesn't. But there are always exceptions as long as you've consciously thought about it. And this idea here then is, it's kind of a bit too obvious. Another one as well would be something like this one here. Now, it's maybe slightly more fun because you've got me with a painting of me. So picture within a picture of this is made, but at the same time, still fairly obvious, I think. So that's kind of where I would start. What have we got? Robert's confirming it is 8 screens that he has. And yeah, there is a certain amount of screen envy there, I must admit. Whereas something like this, I think, is slightly more interesting. Now, this is Meg's own. You may remember we did this one came out of a self-portrait challenge we did last year, I think it was. Now, what's interesting about this one is we've got the picture of Meg. Meg's taken the selfie of herself with herself, where she's placed her glasses on the end of the nose next to the photo. I mean, in a way, you can talk about slightly similarly there. I'm kind of trying to hold my head at a similar angle to the one of the painting. But what also I like about this one as well is the fact that reflected in the glass, you then have her phone. So you've then got an extra picture within the picture where we can see the whole picture, so we can also see her, and then in turn we can just about make out the extra picture on the wall in the picture. So in a way, you've got picture in a picture in a picture, and I quite like that. There's a kind of a bit of fun to that. And again, I suppose in terms of the slightly obvious, but then you go an extra layer or two deeper. And that's kind of where the fun comes in with that. What's that? VG says, loving the ideas, Meg always steals the show. This one, again, now, you can go from the obvious to the absolutely obscure. So some of you may remember this photo where I did the ultimate selfie, where I've actually got 10 different versions of me in the photo. Taken from, where I set the camera up on a tripod and did multiple shots and then blended them all in Photoshop. Now, at first glance, well, fine, there's 10 of me in the photo, although generally speaking, you can only count the 9. So the trick here is where's the 10th? And the 10th is over in the me doing a selfie at the back, where you've then got that hidden 10th photo, picture. So you could say, yes, picture in a picture. But at that point, it is so obscure that you've kind of lost anybody. And certainly if you put it into a challenge, even more so where people are just scrolling past on their small phones, they would never ever see it, they would never ever get it. You would just be probably marked as not on brief. So there is a level whereby you can be too clever for your own good in that sense. So you really kind of want to watch out for that kind of thing. Another version is kind of this, although I will put this in because this is a little bit of fun. This is where we kind of went deeper. Now, for some of you may remember or may not. It doesn't really matter. I'll run through it again. And with this was a shot I did for a photographer who had a studio. Graham Edwards had his big studio, and we wanted to do a shot where we filled when the studio was being used. And it's got several different aspects to it. And this was actually 4 photos then taken like that and then merged together in Photoshop. Now, in his studio, what Graham had was he had this TV screen. And this TV screen, or monitor rather, it's not TV, it's a monitor. And what he does is he can tether his equipment to that, so that when he's taking photos, the clients can see what's happening with the photos. Now, at the time we took this photo, we weren't doing anything like that. So it was just a blank screen. And that black screen then just sort of felt like this sort of empty space. So after I'd sort of put all the images together, what I then did was I took a copy of that layer and then I shrunk it down and I put it onto the TV, allowing some of the kind of little reflection that was still in it so that it kind of felt slightly more authentic. And so I put that picture into here. But once I placed the picture into here, what I noticed was the little screen that was still showing within it was also black and seemed to be having. So then I went forward and I pasted it into here. And then I noticed that there was a little black patch over here. So at this point, this is as far as this is going to allow me to zoom in, but you might see a tiny little white patch there, which is where I kind of shrunk it down to. It's about literally 10 pixels wide at this point onto that. So then we had that picture within this picture, within this picture, within this picture. So that was kind of fun. But again, it's one of those things whereby it's fun once I've pointed it out to you and you understand it, and if you see the great big blown up version of this, which is nearly 2 meters wide, then you can go in and you can enjoy it. However, again, on a phone screen this big, you are never ever ever going to see it. So you have to be aware of this notion of you can be very clever and you can have a lot of fun, but understand your audience, understand how it is going to be seen, understand who's going to be looking at it, and understand how that narrative is being built around it and whether anybody's going to actually understand. It's like the idea you can come up with some really clever joke, but if nobody understands it, where's the joke? It just falls back on you because actually nobody laughed, right? So with that in mind, sometimes you can do, now I threw this one in, there's kind of, what this is like literally bubbles. I was out with my grandson and blowing bubbles, the little bubble liquid, suddenly forgotten what you called it. Is it just bubble liquid? It's another word. You know what I mean. Same kind of stuff you use for washing your dishes. Anyway, blowing bubbles and little spheres go out, they pop. And this one just caught on these little twigs. Now, in a way, what's happening with this is you're kind of getting a reflection. You can see the trees reflecting within this. But it is pretty subtle. The idea of calling it a picture within a picture, I don't think really works. But the reason I put this into today's examples is that what I want to do is really because it kind of reminded me of the lens ball thing. Now, I don't have any lens ball photos, but I know VG does, and I know one or two others of you have. And a lens ball is, so that tends to be something where you can create a picture within a picture. So you have the lens ball within the picture, but then what happens is what you can see through the lens ball in the background creates another picture. So kind of be creative with that. That gives you another option. So, like I say, kind of avoid trying to be too obscure or too clever. You're really trying to make, when you're doing the picture within a picture, you're trying to make sure that it really is two pictures. So you have the overall picture and it has to work as an overall picture. And then you have the picture within it and that has to also work as a picture. Okay? In this case, I would say the overall picture works, the picture within the picture doesn't. So keep that kind of idea in mind. Now this one is, I would say, slightly less picture of a picture, but it is frame within a frame. Okay? Because that's another version of this kind of subgenre challenge idea. And what we have here, so we've got these JCB diggers, and this one here is then framed by the arm of the one in front. Okay, so not strictly speaking a picture within a picture, but it is a frame within a frame. So when you have that, when they talk frame within a frame, the whole picture is considered frame number one. But this then becomes frame number two because it is framed by something else that's in the picture. Okay? And so that's worth keeping in mind because if you are looking through something, you are framing something with it. Okay? Right, excuse me a sec. So I hope this is kind of starting to make a little bit of sense. Oh, not that one. So let's go back to here. Here's another version of a kind of frame within a frame within a frame, where what we do, so here we've got a magnolia tree where all the pictures are coming out. This was just one taken on my daily walk the other day. There's this old fence with rusty fence with peeling paint and all the rest of it. But rather than, now I could quite easily stand over and take a photo of the magnolia tree, just stand looking over above the fence. But with this one, deciding to look through the fence, I'm creating a frame around it. And this happens to have like a double frame. It's got, you know, a circle within, and then you've got the little bits coming up, and then you've got another circle. And so this sense, it's not just a magnolia tree. The frame is creating an extra layer of interpretation. We're looking at the tree through the fence. Okay, so we're adding on a certain layer of narrative by having this extra frame. Hoping that makes sense to you. Now, another kind of idea is where you essentially have like a tunnel or an entrance or something which goes down, and then there's a gap at the end. So again, a sort of frame within a frame, picture within a picture. So this, for anybody who's ever been to Dumfries, will recognise this is a little kind of underpass that goes onto the Lawburn Centre next to Marks and Spencer's in Dumfries. And the sun was coming up, and the sun was kind of creating these shadows. You know, you've got the shadows from the fence there coming up here. At the same time, we have a cleaning person, cleaning services written on the back of their jacket, taking one of the bins down it. But whereas from this distance, fully pulled out, you then become aware that most of the colours here are the kind of browny yellows from the brickwork. There's a bluish patch at the end. And as we zoom in here, there's a different scene. So we've got a car there, we've got people walking about. So it's much more of a kind of street scene, little one-way arrows and what have you. So that then is kind of a scene within a larger scene. So scene within a scene, frame within a frame, picture within a picture. you're getting that. Hopefully you're kind of getting the idea. Another version of this is something like this, which is actually literally next door to me, is the Imperial Hotel. Out from the front is just a kind of a large building with black paint, but inside there's a courtyard. So going back this couple of hundred years old, this building, this courtyard would have originally been a place where horses, coaches, and old horse-drawn coaches would have they stopped overnight. You've had the stables at the back, all that kind of thing. But you have this entranceway now. So I'm standing behind. It's night time. We've got this sense of the buildings, but we've also got the gap through the end. And again, the gap through the end, in this particular point, we've got a bus disappearing here. Now, it's probably not the greatest thing. The problem is this time of night, there's not a lot going past. Could have been quite interesting if you'd had somebody pushing their pram or cycling or just standing there lighting a cigarette or something like that. Might have made a much better picture within a picture. This, because whilst there is a kind of frame within a frame, I have to say this bit here, back end of a slightly out of focus bus, isn't necessarily the most interesting of things to look at. Likewise though, what you also have is you have a set of windows which are lit up. Now in this window, looks like there's a TV screen, can't see what's on. Again, this is a quick snapshot done on my phone just while walking back home from somewhere. But there is potential. You may recall seeing there's various paintings done where you may have a building and there's a window and there's something happening in the window. And then there's been photos which have been put together where there's multiple things. So you have multiple kind of stories within the story. Little vignettes of a picture within a picture. Now, this one here, like I say, doesn't contain that, but it's enough of a picture to hopefully give you an idea to start thinking about that. Whether you have anything like that already, or whether you want to kind of ideally start thinking about it. Because there is this other bit here, which is when I do set challenges, I understand that not everybody has time for them. Now, and so you quite often end up raiding the archives. But in an ideal world, what I would like you to do is take these ideas and go out and get a fresh photo and start thinking, well, okay, you've got 2 weeks. I used to do 1 week for the challenges, and then it was Rosemary, I think, used to say, well, 1 week was never really enough by the time, especially when the pictures usually have to be in by a Friday. So you don't have the following weekend after the challenge to do it. So I would say, now you've got 2 weeks, have a think about this. Is there any way you could kind of do something, whether it's this shot or any of the others that we talk about? April says looks like a very quaint town. VG says lovely place. Well, yeah, and Castle Douglas, it's a couple of 100 years old, which I mean, there are some, maybe 1 or 2 buildings that are older than that. Well, I want to say it makes it a relatively young town in Scotland, but of course I tend to forget that a couple of 100 years old in North America is very old. Different level of history. Another one, taking that idea of, like that idea, you're looking, because the other thing with this one, as opposed to, even with this one as well, is that you have the buildings are kind of creating leading lines, taking you down to a point. And then this one here is creating, if you like, frame within a frame within a frame, again, because you've got a doorway and you're looking down a corridor. So we have the room, this empty room here, but then we have the open doors. And then as we go through, we can see there's more open doors. And as we go through, there's more open doors. And as we go through, then there's a window looking out. Now, again, in an ideal world, it'd be quite nice to have somebody just sort of sitting on the window or leaning against the windowsill there, or something happening outside the window. But you still get that sort of sense of layers. And I think this is one of the big things with photos, is it's this idea of layers. And in a way, this is where this idea of picture within a picture, frame within a frame, generally speaking, works better when you have a judge, or the people who are making judgments on it have a little bit of time to look at the picture. And it's why these things never tend to work quite as well when you have those online competitions where everybody's scrolling at high speed, because subtlety is getting lost. You're only going to notice a one level picture within a picture, and a fairly obvious one at that. When you get that picture within a picture within a picture, frame within a frame within a frame, it tends to get lost. So while if you're sending something in for me, the more layers you can create, the more levels of interest you can create, the better, because I'm going to be spending a little bit of time looking at each of these photos, and I like to be surprised, and I like to be interested, and I like to discover what people have done. If you're just putting it into a Guru Shots style crowd voting fast system thing, then those subtle ones will be lost. What have we got? Oh, April says yes, 2 weeks is much better. Here's another one where I think maybe you do get slightly more of a payoff. So this here, different building. This is courtyard of a castle, not far from here, and so this is the entrance to the courtyard, and it's all dramatic sky, low shot. Buildings are kind of appearing up the way, but through the courtyard, and very deliberately designed by the people who built the castle, into the courtyard we have a pear tree, and that pear tree is then, is it topiary? Well, anyway, I think it's topiary, where you have trees are cut to a very specific shape, so it's not a natural shape, it's designed. So this pear tree looking like, I mean, it looks more like a little toy thing stuck there. So this design, so I mean that really, that if you think about it in its own right, within the archway is a picture in its own right. But then the larger part, even if you didn't have that bit, is a picture in its own right. And then when you place the two of them together, you are getting, you then have, so it's like 3 layers of picture. You've got the whole thing, you've got the little bit, and you've got the bit which would still work even if the bit wasn't in the middle. So I hope that kind of makes sense. And this is really where we're kind of moving into that notion, I think. So something like this, where when you're looking through the gap, you actually have a payoff at the end, is much more effective than something like this. This is not too bad because there are more doors. This one doesn't work because all you've really got is the out of focus bus. This one kind of okay, but maybe the picture, the end part is too small in this one as well. Fairly small in this one compared to the overall picture. Still fairly small, but noticeable. So out of that kind of little set, I would say this is the one that gives you the most kind of payoff. So if you're thinking about that notion of something through a gateway, through a doorway, through some kind of entrance, then, or down some corridor, think about the payoff at the end, where you're, by having a door, by having leading lines, you're asking your viewer to go to this point. And then if there's no payoff at that point, it kind of just feels like we've wasted our time. April says very pretty courtyard. Yeah, now this one, okay, just to go back to this, is the idea that this part here, the picture feels almost separated out. Now, this one here, what I wanted to point out, because it's another kind of picture within a picture, is what we essentially have is like a split picture, a split frame. So this was taken at a festival, I think it was Eden Festival, in the evening. There's a caravan bar at the back. It looks like they're selling bottles of wine and bits and pieces, and kind of like bistro. But it's a a wine bar, a bit like a burger van, a wine van, that kind of thing. And in the foreground there are tables and bits and pieces out, and there's a couple of people sitting here drinking their cans of Foster's by the look of it. Going on, and backlit by the light coming from here. And here there's nothing really going on, so the woman's just looking like she's playing around on her calculator, or probably playing around on her phone, not a calculator, scrolling through to see what's going on. Is that popcorn? Could be. But the point is that essentially what we have is we have 2 photos in the one photo. So there's the whole photo, which is this scene whereby people are sitting down, chatting, having their drinks with a quiet bar behind them. But at the same time, you could actually literally split this in half. And if we had this half, then what we have is we have a scene whereby you have a van where you've got the literal window frame around it, but it's quiet, so the woman is tapping away on her phone. But we also have this half, which is then about friends sitting down at a table chatting while they're having a drink, backlit by something. So in this, we literally have the separation out of the pictures. So that can be quite interesting. And here I would start thinking maybe a little bit like Andy's photo last week. Do you remember the jockeys? Where you had the jockeys in the doorway, but there were also two windows to the side of him. And whilst I think the upper window wasn't really showing much, the lower window, there you could see like a table and chairs and a bag in it as well. So it was almost like there were three different photos sitting in there for the price of one. So that's another way you can do the frame within a frame, picture within a picture notion. Here is taking this idea, the exhibition is now closed, but there was an exhibition in the Kakubri galleries recently where I had a couple of pictures in. It was the Decade exhibition. And what we have here is you've got a sort of a split whereby on the right hand side we've got actually two of my pictures on the wall. It's not just actually, that's deliberately done. So I had my picture here, and I'll actually be showing that one later again, and my picture here. So you've got two pictures on a wall, so picture within a picture, but we've also got the gap in the wall here where people would then walk through. And when you walk through, we've got display cases with other people's artwork and further pictures in the background as well. So we've kind of got a split. We could split this kind of down the middle, and you've got one picture on the right and then we've got another picture on the left, and then the whole picture is the way the two are kind of combining and interacting with it. So this notion of split picture is really worth thinking about. Another version of that, so this one probably even more like Andy's one, is where shop window at night. So this is In-House Chocolates, which I know many of you will have heard me talk many times. My favourite place for hot chocolate and a mocha. So again, Castle Douglas, 100 yards down the road that way. And here we have, because again, a window at night. So we've got the window, we've also got the door. And this has kind of created slightly two separate spaces. And it's lit up, so we've also got the outside, the actual bit that says In-House Chocolates, that doesn't have a light on it. So it feels like it's got a frame around it, which is quite dark. If this was daylight though, we would see that, but we wouldn't then see the inside. Now, it might then be interesting to get in there in the blue hour, where you just get the balance right, where there's still enough light on the outside to get the outside of the frames of the doorway and the window, while also getting the light through on the inside as well. But as it stands, it does mean that essentially we can see into the chocolate shop here. We've got the window display here, we've got somebody sitting down having a coffee or a chocolate or whatever with somebody, you can see the body there, hidden behind the window display. But then there's also the doorway itself, and the doorway itself which says open, and picture in the background, some of you may recognise the 7 Deadly Sins of Chocolate, one of mine of course. So there's a picture going on over here as well. So in essence, just in this little bit of doorway, we have a picture through the frame. And so again, there's that notion of layering it up and getting more kind of narrative levels within it. And I suppose really to come back to this notion then, that I think it is one of those things which I think is often lost in photography. And one of the things I love doing in photography, but it gets lost in the way most people are doing photography these days, which is, it's coming back to this layers within layers. It's something I really enjoy doing. And whenever I do the kind of big stage narrative shots, I like that idea of having extra details, extra levels of interpretation, some of which you might not even notice or might not even get, but somebody else would get. And it makes it a more enjoyable. It allows you to spend time with a photo and discover new things within it. part of the problem is, for most people tend to think photography is just an instant thing. So I pull out my phone, I take a photo of my lunch, there's a picture of my lunch, nothing more needs to be said about it. Or here's me and my friend having lunch. And that's okay, that's fine, that is disposable, easy photography. But I do like a photo where you can spend time with it, and the longer you spend time with it, the more subtleties you start to find within it. But like I say, that tends to fail quite nastily in competitions where people are just scrolling quite quickly and not spending time with it. So you're trying to balance up, how much do you want to have the enjoyment of constructing to creating a photo, and then somebody else who really appreciates what you've done doing that, to being able to explore what you've done, versus quick and easy wider popularity to do less subtle, more obvious kind of images. And I say, in a way, that's the creative dilemma for anybody who wants to be, creativity versus popularity. Generally speaking, the more creative you are, the narrower your audience becomes. However, your narrow audience tends to be more appreciative of the fact that you've gone to extra levels and layers. Right, okay, just take a little breather here, and I suppose a quick little reminder, if you're finding these podcasts useful, interesting, entertaining, and would like to support them, then buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres is one of the ways you can do it. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, to hit the like button, the notification bell, all the usual kind of things, and have a think about any friends you know who you might want to drag along to these too as well. Right, okay, so let me have a think. Let's head back here to, I'll do one more split frame thing here, because then what we're sort of starting to move on to is to the next section, which is quite one where we're kind of overlaying this notion of mirrors. So here, or not mirrors, windows. So windows are, which we've already seen actually with the previous one. This is a window looking out. There's windows in here. We talked about the potential for window stories in that. But to make it a little bit more of the notion of a window, and the window looking out from the, using the window to actually frame something going on. So here we have woman looking out the window, but in a way you could split this pretty much down the middle. You would have quite a nice photo on the right, maybe less of an interesting photo on the left, but there is a tree there, there is something else going on. So picture within a picture, sort of. It's maybe not fully there, but you kind of start to get the idea that something could be happening outside the window which is slightly different. Now this is one where you actually use the window specifically for the picture. So in this case, this is inside my car as I'm about to go through the car wash, right? So car wash has started. I've suddenly thought, oh, I'm in a car wash. Quick, get the phone. I wonder what this is going to look like as it starts spinning over. So then a couple of shots as I'm kind of lining up. And what is happening here? So the whole picture is, well, we can see steering wheel, we can see radio dial, we can see the various little buttons and what have you. So we've got the inside of my Mini. And of course, for all you in North America who are watching this are going, but the steering wheel's on the wrong side. Yes. But this is the way we drive here in the UK. And I think, is that the way you drive in India, VG? Do you have the steering wheel on the right? I think so. However, for you in Canada and USA, I know that's going to look slightly odd. But if we were to flip the image, suddenly all the writing would be the wrong way round. Now, in a way, you could have a picture within a picture with the rear view mirror, but in this case, all you catch is the corner of my ear as I'm leaning over like this to try and line up my camera to my phone to get the shot so it's fairly centre aligned. April's saying, so strange seeing the steering wheel on the right. Another version of this as well, this was done another time, where we're now on a small back road in Cumbria, and near to where my wife used to live when she was a little child, and I pulled over so she could take a little walk along the lane to sort of, and it sort of brings back little childhood memories from when she sort of walked to school along this lane. She got out. She's kind of there, a little figure peering over a fence down towards the house she used to live in. And I'm sitting in the car, and I thought there's something rather beautiful just in that notion about seeing the window of the car, sort of framing the picture. So using that window to frame your picture and have that, I think, can really work quite well, quite nicely. But then the fact that we've got the inside of the car is adding this extra layer of narrative to what's going on. So it's, again, layers within layers, which is the fun part. Now, to take that idea of what I was talking about, I mean, again, to go here up in the rearview mirror, you can just about catch my fingers trying to hold the phone. Nothing particularly, well thought out about that. Back of the chair, nothing overly interesting in that one. However, in this photo, again, one or two of you may remember that I created with Eva and Emily. The use of the rearview mirror then comes into it as well. So we've got Eva inside the car, and a bit like the Mini, we've got dashboard, we've got readouts, we've got clock and gear stick and all what have you. But then through the window, we've got Emily standing, leaning on the bonnet, giving her daggers. But then what we've also done is we've shifted the rear view mirror so that it's showing Emily's eyes. Eva's eyes, which you can't see from this angle. We've only got a little. We can see that she's looking at Emily, but we can't see what the look might be like. Whereas we're catching it in there. So within this picture, we're using the window in the same way that I did with the Mini, but also we're using the rear view mirror with two people in it to create a construction of extra layers of narrative that are going on within it. Hoping this all makes sense. Okay, so that's window, that's mirrors, frame idea. Let's talk about this notion of reflection. Okay, because you can go frame within a frame here. So what's happening here is we've got a cat sitting in the window, and I've got the frame of the window here. So we've got frame within a frame, the cat's in the window. But more than that, we've got the tree. The tree is actually reflected as well. So the tree kind of becomes, although, the tree, the cat has not got the tree behind it. The cat is sitting inside where it's got a bit of a, you can see like a little bit of furniture here, like some kind of seat. But the tree is part of the reflection as well. So the tree as a reflection is kind of creating a picture within a picture. April says, what a cutie. Now, again, if we go back to Eva, this was another shot which I did with the same car with Eva. And I've talked to her, I can't remember what program it was now, but about 100 odd episodes ago, I talked about this shoot. And to go back to this usual notion of the reflections as well, is here, at this point we park the car under a tree with the cherry blossom. So it must have been, I think it was the end of April or something like that. And the cherry blossom is rather beautifully coming out on the trees and reflecting. And you see it sort of reflected here, but you also see it reflecting over Eva's face. And then Eva's looking kind of wistfully out of the window. And there's different places where, it catching the little pinks and what have you catching in the chrome of the window. So we've got a frame around her because we can see that she's in a car window. We've actually included the window. We've not just missed the window out and only included the seating. Well, we've got the reflection as well. And then she's lit up by what looks like a kind of setting sun balance. It's actually an off-camera flash with an orange gel on it. So we've got frame within a frame, but we've also got this layer of cherry blossom. And then the pinks of the cherry blossom are also kind of echoing slightly in the patterned, the vintage pattern dress that she's wearing as well. Also, even little bits of cherry blossom here reflecting in the bodywork of the car. So we're using an extra picture. We're allowing reflections to create an overlay of pictures on pictures. So again, this is something where the picture element of it, the reflection side of it, will probably get lost if somebody isn't stopping to really think about it. However, the fact that we have the window frame around it would allow for a kind of fairly fast frame within a frame picture. This one, we have the tailor standing in front of his tailor's shop. This one, again, has multiple layers. I think I've talked about this one before, but for those of you who can't remember or never saw it. So we have Andrew Livingstone, tailors, again, just down the road here. And so we've got him, but we've got the window frame, and we're looking through the window and we can see the suits. So we can see the suits here on the mannequins, shirt for sale. We can also see slightly deeper into the shop, and in the background here, we've got Andrew's wife, Sue. And we can see further back little things going on in the shop, possibly even that's out the back window, I think, down the length of the shop. But there's another level of subtlety, another level of pictures again, which is the buildings. To go back to, well, what does Castle Douglas look like? And this is very kind of Scottish architecture. If you look at the reflections in the window here, we can see the kind of attic roof here. We can see now it's all distorted because of the curvature of the glass, but we can see the chimney, we can see the roof, we can see television aerials up there. And as we kind of come down here, you can see the street kind of curving off down here, again with the red sandstone and the high chimneys. Van parked just down there, and likewise over on the right hand side we also have more of the street going on. So actually you've got a reflection of part of King Street, the opposite side of the street, kind of curving in and overlaying it as well. So once again, you've kind of got pictures within pictures within pictures. And then if you really wanted to get, there's a window in the reflection across the road, and what would have been really quite fun is if somebody had been standing in there looking out. So layers within layers, lots of fun to be had there. So that notion then of reflections, let's go into this notion of mirrors, because mirrors then allow you to create pictures within pictures, frames within frames. So very quick self-portrait, as you can see, caught on my phone. I was doing a shoot. I happened to notice sitting on the floor was this convex mirror, kind of curving, distorting everything at the end. So I just little squat down, pull the thing out, take a photo of myself, and you can see the room behind me. So more kind of frame within a frame than picture within a picture, because we can see the mirror frame here, and that's creating the extra frame. We know then that it's very much a mirror shot rather than just a lens distortion shot. Less of a picture. Actually, if you removed me from the picture, if that was just blank, this would be an incredibly boring photo, because all you would have would be the frame and nothing interesting. So this is one where it only works because you've got the picture on the inside. So it's not necessarily, to my mind, the best pictures, the best ones that do the picture within a picture are where the whole thing works, but also the picture within the picture works, but also the picture without the picture in the picture works. So whatever levels, but then combining them all create something bigger than any of them individually. Hoping that all makes sense, and I'm not just kind of, I am just talking my own thoughts out aloud all the time. But another form of reflection here, I think it becomes a little bit more interesting. In this case, this was a Sex Pistols tribute band, okay, that I photographed quite a few years back now. This was so this guy was the Johnny Rotten impersonator, and we're backstage. He's getting ready he's getting his hair all spiked up. He's got his gear kind of done, and so somebody kind of adjusting themselves in the mirror is obviously one of these places where we can see him. We can also see the reflection. Here's another one where you've got frame within a frame as well as reflections. So this one was taken at Kirkcudbright Galleries back tail end of COVID, masks obviously still being worn. This woman here, one of the staff members who periodically kept kind of coming into the lift, the elevator, rubbing down handrails and the likes. So I've got a photo of her. I've got a photo of her in the doorway. So the doorway itself creates the frame within a frame, but then we also have the mirror wall of the lift, the elevator, where she's reflected within that as well. So again, we're starting to build up extra layers of April's saying tongue twister. Which one's the tongue twister? I'm suddenly getting mixed up. Are we talking about the elevator, the lift? Right, where am I? Yes, okay. Now, here's another one where what we're doing, I mean, with this one, the mirror is showing us just a slightly different angle of this one. Likewise, the mirror, we can see that the person's in the mirror. But with this one here, what we've got is we've got the mirror, but the mirror gives us an extra layer of the story. So in front of the mirror, we've got this one facing this way, this one facing. So Vanessa is looking at us, Chelsea is looking away. We've got the back of Chelsea's head. But in the mirror, we've then got Chelsea looking straight at us, and we've got the back of Vanessa's head. So we're able to then use that mirror to create, it's not just a straightforward reflection, it's that there's another narrative going on, there's a difference going on within the mirror. And I think that kind of creates a little bit of fun as well. So the reflection not just being an obvious reflection, but the reflection is giving us something that we wouldn't otherwise have. I mean, if we go back to this one, regardless of whether the reflection is adding layers to it, but isn't necessarily creating a huge level of difference to the story. Likewise, this one, if we just zoomed in a little bit more, just had the elbow or something, that still makes sense. Or even if we saw, you kind of removed that bit and just had a little corner of the mirror, it's adding to the story, absolutely yes. But I think once we get to something like this, we are deliberately playing with the mirror to say, here's a different level, there's another story going on in the reflection than is actually happening out with the mirror. So we're into that kind of Alice through the looking glass, that there is a different world happening on the other side of the mirror. April's saying your description of what the way to create a picture within a picture is. Yes. Then we have something like this one. Now, here, I've just realised, again, this is one of those great times where my little image here is actually right over the mirror. Let me just come back here a moment and I will just reduce that. Come back here. And so I can do this so that you can actually get a proper sense of what the picture is supposed to be. So this is the Cluedo shoot. Talked about this a little while ago. And now, the key thing about this photo was we've got the Cluedo, or Clue as it's known in North America, Miss Scarlet, Colonel Mustard, Mrs. White, Professor Plum, all playing their high-stakes poker game, and we've got the lead piping and the revolver and the rope and what have you. You've got the box sitting on there. But what was interesting about this was the notion that we have a mirror reflection going on up here. Now, again, there's that notion, okay, so it's a picture within a picture. The extra subtle layers were the fact that in the picture, in the reflection, we've got the light reflecting off Jean's glasses. However, in the actual picture, Jean isn't wearing her glasses. And this was one of those things where I essentially was placing like an Easter egg within the photo, because when I was doing the photo shoot, after each photo, I had the camera tethered to my tablet, and so everybody would kind of get up and take a little look, or take the tablet over, stick it on the table. Everybody take a look at the photo to see where they needed to maybe adjust or come up with suggestions or what have you. But in order to see it, Jean would then put her glasses on, and when she put her glasses on, we go, okay, right, we know what we're doing. I've removed the tablet, I come back, I take the next photo, and then we suddenly remember that she had her glasses on. And so I think very often Leah or Rebecca would be going, Mum, you still got your glasses on? And go, all right, okay, take the glasses off. But this happens so often, it became such a common refrain, that when I decided to construct this picture, I decided to try and make it so that the reflection actually had her with her glasses on. Even though it's not showing in the main photo. So this is one where I'm creating extra layers. There's picture within a picture, and the picture that you're expecting, the reflection, isn't the same one. Again, that looking glass Alice Through the Looking Glass idea, that it's a different world actually happening in the mirror than is happening in the one that we're observing. And now this one is then probably too subtle again for quick competition. If I was doing guru shots frame within a frame, I wouldn't use this one. But it does give you a sense of kind of what's going on. This one then is layers within layers again. So in this particular photo, what we have is, we notice first, so we've got the mirror frame here. And first off, what we're noticing is woman putting on her lipstick. Now, this very similar to the punk guy adjusting his hair. We can see the sort of back, sort of slightly side of one person, and then we're looking at their reflection. What changes this is the whole film noir aspect of it, where in the background we then have woman sitting on the bed looking quite coy, and then we go down and we see blood-stained back, knife in the back. So there's a murder scene having happened behind the woman as well. So actually the mirror here, because of the way the mirror is slightly tilted away, means that we're looking at her, but then there's this entire scene going on behind. And that, I think, creates these extra layers and levels within the story. And there's different ways of interpreting this. You know, well, why is she just casually putting on her lipstick? Why is she smiling and looking quite pleased with herself while there's a dead body slouched over? And there are different levels of interpretation. I remember somebody once came in and said, oh, I just assumed because their hair is fairly similar, this is like a memory. The reflection is like a memory of the woman. So there's all sorts of kind of different layers of interpretation that you can have within it. Okay, so let's kind of move into the last stretch of this, which is where we essentially end up with multiple levels of picture within picture. So this is taken in quite a grand manor house, where I was out there discussing the potential of doing a photo shoot. We were looking for different spots where we might end up doing things. And this stairwell, that we've got quite a lot of the ancestors. So the ancestors, paintings of the ancestors sitting around the walls. But there's also this giant mirror sitting on the stairwell as well. So I'm here, we've got pictures of the ancestors all sitting on the walls here like this. This is fine. But then we've also got the mirror. We're looking down the stairs, but then we can see the stairs that are coming back up here. We can also see round the corner, tucked under, we've got more ancestors. So there's lots of pictures within the picture, but this mirror is creating a picture within a picture as well. And then you can just about make out me up here with my phone, with the potential client, kind of looking through, seeing what we're looking at. But on top of that, there's another mirror sitting up here at the top of the stairs, where you're getting even more pictures kind of coming out as well. So at this point, we end up with multiple pictures within pictures within pictures within pictures. And this kind of multiple level, I think, is where it becomes really kind of fun with it. Another version, some of you may have seen this one before, which is one that I use for when I occasionally, if there's an article about a magazine, you know, going into a magazine or something, or about these podcasts. And so this one I had the camera sitting on the mantelpiece behind me. I'm operating the camera remotely by my tablet here, and you can see my finger pressing the screen. So what we've got then is we've got the picture of me. This picture here is coming off the webcam. So we've got picture within a picture. Then we've also got this same scene, because this is what I'm taking within the tablet. And within the tablet, we can see my picture up here, but then we can also see the tablet down here. And so multiple pictures, including a couple of my own pictures up here, here, and here at the time, which are then also appearing in this bit as well. All I really needed was something interesting to be standing in the doorway, and I'd have the complete full set, I think. So again, this idea of multiplying up depending on how far you want to take it. This one, again, I think have I talked about this one? Fairly certain I've talked about this one. Yes, I talked about this one. the artist Ewan. Ewan being the artist who actually, if we go back to this photo, Ewan is the one who painted this portrait of me. And Ewan painted this portrait of me in this studio space. So what we have here is I've created I've done a photo of his head, and we've been doing a shot with a white screen behind it, lights behind it, other light, my softbox up here lighting him, another light off to one side. And then having taken a photo of him, I then took a photo of the whole studio setup. So we've got the studio within his studio, but then his studio was within another studio of E.A. Hornell, who's an artist. So this was part of National Trust Scotland building, Broughton House in Kirkcudbright, which was owned by the artist E.A. Hornell. And this was Hornell's studio, and Ewan was sort of essentially having like a residency. So he built his own studio inside Hornell's studio, and then I created my photographic studio in Ewan's studio, in Hornell's studio, where Ewan had also painted me in the process. On top of that, then, we have a whole bunch of Ewan's paintings kicking about all over the place. And then, interestingly, this one here, which features Ewan himself, is Ewan has placed himself in a mirror, and then he's painting, leaning around and painting onto the boards of him and his then partner at the time. So he's sort of like painting a reflection of them as well. So there's multiple layers upon layers upon layers, and it's the kind of thing where you can sort of sit and study this picture and get all sorts of different layers out of it. But again, as a quick thing, if you're scanning through at fast speed on or the people who are looking at it who are going to judge it scanning through at high speed, this won't get the votes. Okay, it's too subtle, it's not going to work. And so then we go to this notion, it's kind of a photo within a photo. It's another version of picture within a picture, which is still a kind of frame within a frame. And here, where I took this photo, where some of you may remember several months ago, we're talking about the notion of depth of field, depth of focus, and what have you. And I did a little setup to show what the difference is between f2.8, f5.6, f8, f11, f13, f22, and what have you. And I just set up a quick little setup where, by having a tape measure, you could see how many of the bits were going to stay in focus. And then we've got little Batman with in front of a magnifying glass, which actually some of you may notice is sitting here. We have Batman figure behind the magnifying glass, coffee pot, different kinds of things going on. Now I was taking that photo, and then I took a photo of this setup with my phone, so that I could show what the setup was. And then you can see not just, so you can see the picture behind it, but you can also see the picture, and you can see the camera settings, 160th a second, f22 auto ISO. And you can see at this point I'm focusing on the Batman behind, the little Batman Lego figure behind the magnifying glass. So we've got photo within a photo. And then finally, to finish off, for those of you who are actually looking at the episode card, here you have, again, multiple layers of phone. So this was a piece of street theatre going on, and down at Kirkcudbright Harbour, one of the things that was happening during part of the summer festivities was they had this big frame. And so they had this frame, and people would go and then pose behind the frame and then get their photo taken. So it's sort of like a live painting. And so we've got this sort of live painting going on here, but then it's being taken by the phone, and I'm leaning over or just slightly back, looking over the shoulder of the woman who's taking. So we've got picture within a picture within a picture again, because in the background here you can also slightly see the live version of, this guy's face is this guy's face. So photo within a photo is another one, and it's not uncommon. It's another one you quite often get is in gigs. I've done this myself, and I've seen other people do it, where people are watching a live band and they're standing up and they're holding their phone because they're filming bits of it, and then as well as somebody else behind might take a photo of the whole scene, but then they zoom in and you can see somebody else's version of what the live band is doing as well. So that kind of layers up as well. So hopefully then this has given you a sense of the potential of what we can do. So to try and remind, to sort of do a kind of summary then, this notion of a picture within a picture. You can do literally, here's me, here's a picture on the wall. It tends to be the least subtle, the least interesting. You can then do a sort of frame within a frame, where maybe you've got a tree branch, or you've got the arm of the digger framing another digger, or you're looking through a fence post and the shape of the fence, or you're looking through a door and you've got a door frame, or you've got a window frame, or maybe the window itself becomes you've got the inside and you've got the outside, whether that's the inside looking out or the outside looking in. Then you also have this idea of reflections within the window. Certainly if you're outside, what's being reflected in the window, as well as what can you see through the window. Now that can work slightly on the inside if you get the light balance right as well. If you can see outside the window, or maybe there's reflections in the window of the inside, if it's lighter on the inside. Then there's that notion of reflections themselves can have extra levels of reflections. And then there's that notion of different kind of narratives where there's something different happening within the mirror than you would normally see from your angle. Maybe the mirror is revealing an extra layer of story, or maybe it's giving an entirely different story to what you would be expecting to come from the mirror. And there's that notion of photo, where you are literally taking a photo of the back of somebody else's phone or camera as well. So if we're talking about this idea of picture within a picture, frame within a frame, photo within a photo, there is so much you can do here. There are so many options. So here we are, setting the challenge then for 2 weeks' time. So it's the 13th today, so we're talking about the 27th of April. I will do the picture within a picture challenge. So you've got nearly 2 weeks. Try and get your images to me by Friday the 25th, Saturday morning the 26th at the latest. But send me your image. Tell me a little bit about your image. Tell me what it is that grabbed you, any subtle little things. If you have gone something where there's a slightly different story going in, tell me why you decided to go for it. Explain the story a little bit. Always think the stories behind the pictures are particularly interesting. They're interesting for us because we want to know what's going on, but they're also interesting in terms of the inspiration. Remember, because we are looking at the photos, we are spending more than 2 seconds on the photos. The whole notion of this Understanding Photography with Kim Ayres isn't just about for me, it's for everybody else who watches these podcasts. And we're hoping that everybody who watches then becomes a little bit inspired, and we share our ideas so that other people can go, "Ooh, that looks interesting. I'll have to have a go at doing something like that as well." So I really hope you will have a go at this, and come back, re-look at this. It's just, even if you just need to skip through, by tomorrow I will have a menu list. I'll have broken down what this podcast is into the different sections of reflections, of looking through doorways, of framing the subject, of being a bit too obvious about it, about being a bit too subtle about it, all these kind of things. I'll break it down so that if you come back and you can scan down the list, which will give you a reminder, and if you want to hear me talking about any of these just to give you a refresher, you can click on it and watch that little section as well. So I'll have that sorted out for you probably by probably around about lunchtime tomorrow, I would imagine. So that's 2 weeks' time, the challenge, and I hope you will take part in that. Because as you can see, I've had a lot of fun with it over the years, trying out different versions, from quick things done with my phone to incredibly well-planned things, and things where a lot of editing has gone on afterwards in order to kind of create these extra subtle layers. Next week, I'm going to be talking about Dumfries drag queens. Did I have a picture here? Will be sitting on the front of the photo. So let's just do that. So I've already got the video card ready. Later on today, I'll get this set up so that it's ready to go. And in a couple of days' time, I'll be putting up the event page for this. But next week's episode 283, I'm going to be featuring a photo shoot I did with Madam Joe and Divine Tension. So Dumfries, small town in southwest Scotland, but there's an entire drag scene going on here, and with full of absolutely wonderful, completely larger than life characters that are being created for our entertainment. So I did a photo shoot with them. I did show one or two of those slight couple of weeks back in the about changing your camera angle to show you what was going on with them. But I'll talk a little bit more I'll show more photos from that photo shoot. There will also be the option of I'll probably have space for one, maybe two critiques. So if anybody would like feedback on their photos, then please do. I mean, for that matter, if you've had a go at trying to do a picture within a picture and it's not working for some reason, send it in. Next week will be an opportunity for me to be able to give you some feedback and talk about how you might change it, what you might do to improve it. So there's an option as well. But if you have anything else going on, you've got pictures you want to go into competitions, you've got pictures that have been in competitions that haven't done very well, whatever it is, you've got photo, you could do with a little bit of feedback on it, send it in to me. And of course, you get extra smug points. You get a bonus 25 smug points for any pictures that you send to me that I use for feedback and critique in these podcasts. Right, so I think that's just about it. We've talked about the picture within a picture, we've set the competition, we've done the smug points, told you what's coming up. I think that must be us. Thank you ever so much, everybody. Oh, well, I suppose actually just a quick last reminder that if you find these podcasts useful, interesting, entertaining, and would like to support them, then buymeacoffee.com/Kim Ayres. Also, if you do want to start putting your pictures in for whether it's critique or for the picture within a picture competition, we have facebook.com/groups/UPwKA, UPwKA, or we have flickr.com/groups/UPwKA. Also then, so stick your photos into either of those. Give me the little background. If it's a critique, feedback, tell me what it is you're struggling with. Tell me what kind of feedback you're looking for, and I will do my best to help. If you're putting your picture in for the picture within a picture challenge, then tell us a little bit about the story and what went into it. Right, so yes, there we go. That's where we are. Thank you ever so much for everybody who turned up and has left comments, and I hope you found that interesting. And I look forward to seeing you all next week. Take care. Bye-bye.